Hey.
How you doing, man?
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Oh, good.
Do you ever get tired of coming to these things? You've done a few Comic-Cons.
I've only done a couple. No, I never get tired. I mean, I used to go to them before iZombie, just as a fan, and walk the floor and sign up for autographs and do those sort of things. So yeah, it's now I'm experiencing the other side of it, which is the novelty hasn't worn off.
Good.
Have you walked the floor since the show has?
Yeah, I do it every time. Yeah, I'll do it today, and I did it at San Diego. That just went. I actually had a couple of issues of iZombie, and
There we go.
This is gonna happen, guys. I'm sorry. I'll let you guys talk.
Yeah, I had a couple of issues of iZombie, and I tweeted, if you can find us on the floor, I'll personalise a thing if you say this phrase, and people. It was like a little Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, we did that. That was cool.
What's the fan reaction to your character? Because it seems like you're kind of the epitome of every geek's dream. You have your geeky side, your nerdy side, and you're getting these incredibly hot women.
Yeah, he does all right. He does cool. I mean, Diane had said it before. Like, I think he initially was just this enthusiastic doctor. They kind of in the pilot, in the breakdown, they mentioned Scotty from Star Trek. That was going to be his role. But then I was like they couldn't find who they wanted, and I was a last-ditch choice, and I just happened to get it right before we started filming. And I'm a big guy, and I bring certain things that were unexpected to them, so the character kind of morphed, so he's a bit of a hybrid of it. But everyone is. I think nerds, that whole nerd geek thing, I don't think it exists. I mean, everyone has some sort of affiliation with pop culture or something that could be deemed as geeky. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have this stereotype of what someone who's into Star Wars or Batman looks like. So I think he's a kind of cool representation of the modern day comic book enthusiast. Yeah.
How important was it planned that he would move from being just kind of a work friend to, I mean, he has connections with almost every major character in the past, and I didn't see that in the early episodes. So was that something that developed organically, or was it there from the beginning and they were planning it?
I'm not sure. I mean, it wasn't pitched that way, so I'm guessing it did kind of just evolve. Obviously, he was always going to just work with Clive and Liv, and then I remember I had a scene with Buckley, and the response from the network and from the people, from the producers, was very positive. So that became a thing, and then the next phase was a scene with, I think, Ali Payton. That was obviously, but that was pitched anyway. I think that was always going to happen, and that worked out well. And then Blaine happened, that worked out well. He ended up just becoming this, I guess, that one character that is in everyone's lives.
Right.
It just kind of happened organically, which is great, because it just means you can see it on screen. I think we have good chemistry with everyone, and the audience can see that, I think.
Kind of going off of that, can you talk about working with Rob and his vision for this project and how that's maybe evolved through the seasons?
I mean, we were a procedural show with a bit of serial on the side. I think that was it. And if you watch the first 4 or 5 episodes, we pretty much stick to procedural almost. It's a case of the week. I think where it's evolved is, I guess, because the characters are so colourful and bright, and I don't know if we have to rely so heavily on procedural anymore. And I guess we're allowed to talk about it now. The last 2 episodes has no procedural in it whatsoever. The finale is a double bill. There isn't a procedural element, and I think that's an organic evolution of us being a part of it, the writing, the chemistry, the characters. That's where we're at the moment. I don't know if season 3, when it starts, we just reset and we're doing the procedural again, and it was just a finale thing. But I like to think that there's probably going to be a bit more of a hybrid between the two.
Is it continual narrative throughout the rest of the season, or do we go back to procedural for
It's just 2 episodes.
Oh, just the 2 last episodes. So
just for the
will
last
be
2 is when, the last, so 18 and 19, that you have no procedural element whatsoever, no case to crack. It's purely everyone's serial, everyone's dramas having their outcome.
You get some best lines of the show. Like in terms of the comedic moments. Is that something that you really enjoy? I mean, you guys had some crazy scenes like your drug-induced.
Yeah, the utopian binges. No, I'm very fortunate on this show. More than most. I every time I read the script, I mean, I'm not necessarily. I'm used very sparingly throughout the episodes, and when he is on screen, it's always fun and it's fun to play. I'm not a comedic actor. I'm not funny like that. I would never. If people say, "Oh, Rahul, what the funny guy?" That doesn't happen. I'm not that guy. But for Ravi, it just became that way, and he just became again another organic thing. That it's. I knew I needed to bring some sort of levity to the scenes and humour, so I just binged other comedies, and like Ricky Gervais is a big hero of mine, so I just borrowed some of his stuff as foundation, and while we're filming, I only watch comedies just to keep it fresh.
Two questions.
Sure.
One, I know in the finale there's going to be some drama between Blaine and Ravi over the Peyton issue.
Yeah.
Can you talk about Ravi's relationship with Peyton a little bit?
They it's where they're at the moment is they're not together, and he's always been there for her. I think his feelings for her are I think he loves her, and they never really got started, but in later episodes we circle back to that and explore that, but also there's a new dynamic because Blaine's been involved with her, so now there's a little bit more, it's a love triangle, it's a CW love triangle, but not done
And my second question is, do you know how many episodes season 3 will be at?
No, we have no idea.
Now, before you got involved with the show, had you read the comic at all, being a comic fan, or?
I was aware of the comic, I hadn't read the comic.
Have you read any of it now? Or
I have, yeah, and I read it before we did the pilot. But again, it was made very clear to me that once I booked the role, we are taking very little from the source material. So at the same time, I did it as out of respect and curiosity, and as a comic book fan I wanted to read it anyway, but it wasn't essential, simply because for me the most essential thing that I did was I spent more time looking at case files and how to do autopsies and interviewing pathologists and going to morgues than I did reading the comic book, because it wasn't hugely relevant to my character.
Does that give you a lot of more freedom, you think, with a show that is based on a comic book, not being adherent to the continuity of, with a show like Flash or Arrow, 80 years of this character's continuity, you guys can really come in fresh, take the source material. Does it give you freedom as an actor?
It does. I mean, but the thing is, at the same time, I think there's pros and cons. I mean, you're starting from scratch. That can be daunting. It might not work. You don't know if these characters, if they're going to receive these characters well, whereas you kind of do know people are going to be excited when Bruce Wayne turns up on screen. Obviously, again, but then they're going to be more judgmental because they have this idea. So it has its pros and cons. But as an actor, I'm happy to create something from scratch, but at the same time, Bruce Wayne would be one of the characters I've always wanted to play since I was a kid. And I think there's so much fun with having a structure, a very rigid structure, and then within that, getting to improvise, freestyle, and add something new and add a dynamic. So you're building on top of someone else's, but you can do some really exciting things with existing characters. So I think there's pros and cons to both.
You GNR fan? You going to Coachella?
I'm going to, I just found out David's taking me to Coachella to see Slash and Axl.
Oh, exciting.